Welcome to a presentation of the National Mass Violence Center SNAPS webinar series. We are grateful to the U.S. Department of Justice, Office for Victims of Crime, for its cooperative agreement that supports our center's programs and services. The opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this webinar are those of the National Mass Violence Center and do not necessarily represent the official position or policies of the U.S. Department of Justice. In this SNAPS, we'll learn about the scope of services that can be provided to mass violence victims and survivors. I'm Ann Seymour, the Center's Associate Academic Program Director, and I'm happy to be able to discuss mass violence victim services and support with you through this SNAPS webinar. We have one learning objective today. I'll be describing the types of services and support for victims and survivors that can be provided across the mass violence continuum in the immediate, short, and long term. Please note that we will address behavioral and mental health services in another SNAPS webinar. People often ask, how do you find out what victims and survivors need? The answer is very simple and very consistent. You ask them. The Basic Needs Assessment instrument developed by Waukesha, Wisconsin in the immediate aftermath of its Christmas parade attack in 2021 with support from our center is a good example that can be easily replicated in any community impacted by a mass violence incident. The brief survey validates survivors' experiences, and it begins by saying, "We are so sorry that you personally experienced the devastating attack on our community's annual holiday parade on November 21st. We're grateful that you have reached out for services and support. Please complete this initial assessment form to help us determine your immediate needs. Your contact information will allow us to keep in touch with you and provide longer-term assistance if needed and upon request." Next, the needs assessment lists available services that are specific to a state and community, which in this case includes crime victim compensation, emergency financial assistance, medical assistance, physical rehabilitation assistance, counseling, safety planning, support from faith communities, and advocacy or intervention with employers. In addition, they can provide information about victim survivor support groups. In communities where there will be a trial, the needs assessment asks about victims' needs for support and advocacy, including information about victims' rights, about the status of the alleged perpetrator or the case with updates, access to a victim advocate to explain the criminal justice process, and any need that survivors may have for translation or interpreter services. Finally, the needs assessment asks about any victim's needs related to a range of social services that are, again, specific to the community. We're very pleased to share that our center has developed 2 mental and behavioral health assessment instruments that will be available soon. One that addresses the immediate needs of victims and survivors. This can be used at family assistance centers. And another one that addresses their long-term needs, and this would be used at resiliency centers. Stay tuned to our center for information about when these assessment instruments are available. Crisis intervention services provide immediate support to help victims cope with the trauma and stress resulting from their victimization. One of the best resources in the Mass Violence Victim Assistance Toolbox is psychological first aid. PFA is an evidence-based approach for assisting victims in the immediate aftermath of traumas and fostering short and long-term adaptive functioning. PFA offers psychoeducation about positive coping skills and is delivered in the first 24 to 72 hours following a mass violence incident. Psychological first aid also provides referrals to ongoing support and services. A field operations guide developed by our center's partner, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, along with the National Center for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, is available for free in 4 languages. NCTSN also offers a free 6-hour interactive course that you can access at this URL. For over 50 years, mutual peer support groups have been foundational to victim services and support. Support groups are sponsored both in person and virtually by many resiliency centers across the country. Our center's partner, Given Hour, advises that lived experience peer support is most suited for victims and survivors who seek emotional support, who may feel isolated, those who want connection to others, those who may need practical guidance. There are some victims who prefer a non-clinical approach, and also for those who are in recovery and of course who want to share their lived experiences. This wonderful tribute to peer support groups says it all. True healing begins when we feel understood, not just by professionals, but by those who have walked the same path. Peer support offers a rare kind of connection, one built on mutual experience, shared vulnerability, and the knowledge that none of us is alone. It turns pain into purpose, creating a ripple effect of compassion and resilience that helps others rise as we rise ourselves. Generally, there are 3 types of legal services that mass violence victims may seek. First, civil litigation is a legal process where a dispute between 2 parties, the plaintiff and the defendant, is resolved through a lawsuit in court, with the plaintiff seeking compensation or other relief for damages that are caused by the defendant. This can include things like personal injury, wrongful death, or emotional stress, among other damages. Next, mass violence victims and survivors may enter into third-party litigation. 2 well-known examples emanate from the Sandy Hook families, who sued radio host and podcaster Alex Jones for defamation, and who sued gun manufacturer Remington, the company that manufactured the firearm used in the mass shooting. Last, but not least, some victims need services to help them address personal legal issues, such as issues with landlords or issues with employment. Some victims may have emergency financial needs, and many communities create local funds that help address such needs. Financial advocacy and assistance may involve providing support to apply for government benefits, which can be very complex and frustrating. And financial management guidance can help victims with basic tasks like budgeting, filing insurance claims, and establishing their financial priorities. It can also help them with managing any funds they may receive from donations, which is especially important in addressing not only current needs, but their future needs as well. Crime victim compensation programs that can help victims cope with the financial losses associated with mass violence victimization are available in all 50 states, all territories, and the District of Columbia. At the Friends and Relatives Center and Family Assistance Center, victim compensation staff often team with law enforcement officials to immediately facilitate crime victims' compensation applications and document that the victim has reported the crime to police. It's important for victims to open a crime victim compensation claim, as they may have pecuniary losses in the future. And it's important to know that all VOCA-funded victim service professionals are required to help victims and survivors with their CVC claims. Many communities and resiliency centers sponsor integrative programs that can enhance survivors' personal well-being and resilience. It's important to know that not all integrative programs are evidence-based, although some meditation and mindfulness activities are evidence-informed. Some examples of integrative programs are meditation and mindfulness programs, trauma recovery yoga, art and music programs, and programs that involve animals to provide comfort and support. Remembrances and memorial activities are important components of survivors' recovery and resiliency journeys. These activities can include pop-up memorials that are created in the immediate aftermath of a mass violence incident, community tributes and memorials including vigils and public service projects, and often the creation of a permanent memorial in a community that offers a lasting tribute to the devastation of the mass violence incident and its impact on victims, survivors, and the community as a whole. Personal remembrances are as simple as reaching out annually to survivors on the date of the mass violence incident. Our center has several tip sheets on our website that offer additional information about remembrances and memorials. When there is a state or federal trial of a defendant, or sometimes trials in both jurisdictions, victims need information about criminal justice processes and personal advocacy to help them navigate those processes in a manner that is survivor-centered and trauma-informed. Our center's court guide, which is available on our website, offers extensive guidance to communities and practitioners to provide comprehensive and coordinated victim assistance for mass violence trials. In the aftermath of mass violence, victims are often thrust, sometimes unwillingly, into the media spotlight and may need ongoing advocacy to help navigate their interactions with both traditional and social media. I believe that most news media professionals are responsible and want to be sensitive in their interactions with victims and survivors. We know that the news media comprise a concept that is foreign to most victims and survivors who lack experience in dealing with the media. It's important to recognize that interactions between media professionals and mass violence victims and survivors can be very stressful for both parties, and that information is power for survivors who want to engage with the news media. We can enhance the personal power of victims who choose to deal with the news media by providing them with information and education. On our center's website, you'll find tip sheets that address crime victims in the news media in general, including their autonomy and choice, guidelines for media interviews, specific guidelines for survivors of homicide victims, and how to prepare for and conduct media interviews. Victim services and other helping professionals can advocate for victims who use social media as a component of their recovery journey, first by pointing out the promises and perils, which includes the positive aspects of social media engagement, as well as the challenges posed by social media trolls and conspiracy theorists. We can also provide practical guidance about privacy protections that victims can tap into on social media platforms, and even help them set up personal security protections. And sometimes advocacy involves helping survivors to create personal online tributes to their loved ones. Please visit our virtual resiliency center at massviolence.help for additional information about mass violence victim services, support, and so much more. Let's check back in on this SNAP's learning objective. Did we describe services and support that can be provided to mass violence victims and survivors? And did we address victim services and support across the mass violence continuum, immediate, short, and long term? You can let us know if our learning objectives were met by taking a photo of the QR code on this slide, which will take you to a brief anonymous survey to assess this SNAPS webinar. You can also provide us with suggestions for additional SNAPS webinars, which we always appreciate. Thank you so much for completing this survey, and we appreciate your participation in this SNAPS webinar about services and support for mass violence victims and survivors.